Our study tested the relationship between entrainment stability using a perturbation task, intrapersonal synchronization using a melodic intonation therapy task, and reading fluency in both native English and Mandarin speakers. It has been established in the previous literatures that behavioral entrainment and rhythmic skills are linked to speech fluency in people with non-fluent aphasia and reading fluency in neurotypical and atypical developing children in different language systems. Melodic intonation therapy is a widely known method of improving speech fluency for people with non-fluent aphasia. The original technique involves intoning the to-be-produced speech and synchronizing hand movements with the syllables as they are produced. There are some evidence suggesting that for people with non-fluent aphasia, the latter technique, which is the synchronizing hand movements with the syllables, might be the crucial element. There are other rhythmic entrainment-based speech and reading interventions designed for children with developmental dyslexia that had shown equivalent gain as phonemic-based interventions. However, the underlying mechanism of the link between overt behavior entrainment to an auditory rhythm and reading fluency are unclear. First, I will clarify some definitions. Here, we will use the definitions from Lactose et al.'s recent paper. Entrainment is the response of an oscillator to an external rhythm, bringing the oscillation into synchrony with the external rhythm, such as tapping to an auditory stimulus. Synchronization refers to oscillations that are coupled bidirectionally and exert mutual influence on one another, such as tapping to the syllables you produce. And stability is the ability of any oscillatory system to maintain an entrained or synchronized state. The most direct way to measure stability of entrainment is to bring the system into steady state, deliver a phase or frequency perturbation, and observe the system's relaxation back to steady state. The aim of the study is to use a perturbation task to test the stability of behavior entrainment in neurotypical young adults. Then we examine the relationship between entrainment stability and intrapersonal synchronization using an MIT task. Finally, we test the relationship with oral reading fluency and comprehension in both native English and native Mandarin speakers. 34 neurotypical participants were recruited from the Yukon community. All were right-handed and either native English or native Mandarin speakers. They have an average of 5 years musical instruments playing and 1.6 years of musical theory training. The stimuli we used for the behavior entrainment task are isochronous rhythms with unpredictable phase and tempo perturbations. All rhythms started with at least 4 tones at isochronous intervals, and the perturbation occurred at a pseudo-randomized place within the following 8 tones. There were always 15 tones after the perturbation. For phase perturbation, only one inter-onset interval at the perturbation site was changed. For tempo perturbation, all inter-onset intervals after the perturbation were changed, creating a new tempo. There were 3 base tempi before the perturbation point, 2 types of perturbation. The inter-onset interval change had 3 different sizes, and the perturbation can happen in 2 directions. This created 36 different conditions, with each condition was repeated for 4 times. Participants were instructed to synchronize their taps to every tone in the stimuli as accurately as they can. The MIT synchronization task was designed to be similar to the intrapersonal synchronization portion of the original MIT technique. Participants read a sentence on the screen as naturally as possible while synchronizing their taps with every onset of every syllable. There was no intonation aspect of this task. Participants also completed the metric test from the Montreal Battery of Evaluation of Amusia, which is a meter structure discrimination task. The language assessments were different for English speakers and Mandarin speakers. For English speakers, their word reading fluency was assessed using a word attack and word letter ID subsets from Woodcock-Johnson. Their passage reading fluency and comprehension were assessed using the Gray Oral Reading Test. For Mandarin speakers, the word reading fluency test requires participants read through 102 character words as quickly and as accurately as possible. For the sentence comprehension test, participants silently read a list of sentences and make judgments about the truth value of each sentence given a limited time. Moving on to the results of the study, to analyze the behavioral entrainment task, for each participant, each trial, we first computed the phase of each tab relative to the nearest stimulus tone using this equation. Relative phase was then averaged across the 4 trials in each condition. This plot visualized the behavior entrainment at 25% perturbation size condition. Each point here refers to the average relative phases of that event across all participants after we sort all the trials by the perturbation point. The thin lines shown here are relative phases averaged across 4 trials for each participant, and the thick lines is the group average. We divide all events into 3 different time windows. Pre-perturbation, which included 4 events before the perturbation point. In the middle is the relaxation window, which included 8 events starting from the perturbation point. On the right, the post-perturbation includes 8 events after the relaxation window. Because relaxation time is a good index of entrainment stability, we calculated the synchronization coefficient using this equation during the relaxation window as a sensitive measure of relaxation time. For each participant, we computed the synchronization coefficient first across all conditions, then for each perturbation condition separately. We used linear mixed effect model to model the entrainment stability, with the dependent variable being the synchronization coefficient in the relaxation time window. The first table showed that participants' age, language, and musical experience did not show significant effects in predicting the entrainment stability. We then built separate models for each perturbation condition. This table showed that base tempo, perturbation size, and perturbation direction were important determinants of the entrainment stability. This plot showed the main effects and adjusted p-values of each of the 4 conditions using either Kruskal-Wallis or Wilcoxon test due to the non-normal nature of the entrainment data distribution. As we can see here, more difficult conditions yield worse entrainment stability, indicated by lower synchronization coefficient numbers. Next, we examined the relationship between entrainment stability and MIT synchronization. To measure the performance of MIT synchronization, we first manually marked each syllable onset time using Pratt across all sentences. Then we used this equation to calculate the variability of each tap syllable coordination. This measure is essentially similar to relative phase calculation, but it does not assume periodicity. We refer to this measure as normalized asynchrony. For each participant, their MIT synchronization is defined by the standard deviation of all normalized asynchrony across all tap syllable pairs. Therefore, smaller normalized asynchrony number indicates better MIT synchronization performance. We used a hierarchical multiple regression model to test the relationship between entrainment stability and MIT synchronization. Our results show that after controlling for participants' age, language, and musical experiences, entrainment stability predicted MIT synchronization across all perturbation conditions. This plot showed the raw correlations between entrainment stability and MIT synchronization for all participants. Each dot represents 1 participant. As you can see, that participants with a higher synchronization coefficient, meaning better entrainment stability, also have a lower normalized asynchrony number, indicating better MIT synchronization performance. The next step is to examine the relationship between entrainment stability and English-speaking participants' language assessment scores. Also using hierarchical multiple regression model, our results show that after controlling for participants' age and musical experience, there is a weak relationship between entrainment stability and word reading fluency. Entrainment stability was strongly predictive of passage reading fluency across all perturbation conditions. We found no relationship between entrainment stability and passage reading comprehension. The plot showed the raw correlations between entrainment stability and passage reading fluency for English-speaking participants. Participants with a better entrainment stability also have a higher, meaning better, passage reading fluency score. Last, we examined the relationship between entrainment stability and Mandarin-speaking participants' language assessment scores. Still using hierarchical multiple regression model, our results show that after controlling for their age and musical experience, entrainment stability predicted word reading fluency in the difficult conditions. We found no relationship between entrainment stability and sentence reading comprehension. Again, the plot showed the raw correlation between entrainment stability and word reading fluency for Mandarin-speaking participants. The direction of the regression line looks different in this plot comparing to the last one because the higher score on the y-axis actually indicates worse word reading fluency, which is labeled as disfluency here. So participants with a better entrainment stability also have a lower word reading disfluency score. We found a strong relationship between behavior entrainment stability, MIT synchronization, and passage and word reading fluency for native English and native Mandarin speakers, respectively. Entrainment stability significantly predicted MIT synchronization performance for all participants, as well as passage reading fluency for English speakers and word reading fluency for Mandarin speakers. The strong relationship between entrainment and MIT synchronization performance suggests that entrainment or synchronization training may be used to improve MIT task performance. Specifically, training that involves responses to temporal perturbations may become a part of the intervention technique in clinical settings with participants who might otherwise not be candidates for MIT.